Good morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity and my 1000th video. Yes, today is 1000. Rather proud of myself, and as I said before, I had no idea I had the time to do 1000 videos. So if you ever get the time, go back in my archives, particularly to my first one where I think I might have sounded, you know, like a rabbit trapped in the headlights. Yeah. How things have changed. I'm very used to talking to myself now. Right, what are we doing today? We're doing Panalisa, and we're going to do the flower panel. I was going to do the beehive, and I changed my mind because I've got a lot going on in the garden at the moment, and I'm trying to fight a bunch of black bugs that have appeared on my lime tree. So I'm just trying to get rid of that, and then I've got my eyes on the peach tree and leaf curl. So, you know, I'm hopping in and out of the garden, so I chose something quite easy, and we're going to use this pack, and we're going to use this die. Now this is absolutely gorgeous, and I decided to use one of the plainer sheets, and I have, you know, tried to be organised and already done a little bit of die cutting, but I wanted to kind of stick with the colour theme and see if it would work. So I pulled out a bunch of my oxides, and I'm going to show you. This is Bravery. We've got Rustic Wilderness, Bundled Sage, Old Paper, Fossilised Amber. I'll grab another handful. I've got Straw, Tea Dye, Vintage Photo. You can see where I'm going here. And we've got Antique Linen and also Walnut Stain. And do you know, while I was going through my inks, I realised I do not have the oxide in Wild Honey. I looked up and down and I could have sworn that I had it, but clearly I don't. So that is one that I need to buy, and is why I went with the Fossilised Amber. Right, I'm just going to move those off to the side, because this is the sheet from this pack that I decided, and I have cut my base. So I think you can see where I'm going with my colours. I'm going to try and do a monochrome style card using that panel, something I've never done before, so it could be that a disaster awaits. Yeah, but isn't that beautiful paper? Really lovely, like a dandelion clock, or wispy, or even like oh, what's it called, the herb dill. Yeah, the flowers of the dill weed. Really pretty, love that. And I don't know really which way I'm gonna go, whether I'm gonna be dark up that side. Do you know what I mean? You can do your cards whichever way round you want. Right, now that I've made you dizzy, I'll show you. I have cut the flower panel in white because it's going to be inked, so we've got that. And the die comes with two sentiments. You get love or you get smile. I've decided on smile, so you get a base and you also get words. And once again, you know, that's something else that will be inked up. And because I've used my beloved craft stock as the base there, I've actually cut a little banner that comes with this set in craft card stock, but I kind of put the word on it and, you know, kind of arranging it, and I think it's kind of going to go off on the top of that somehow. Not sure how, but, you know, I'll do it. And it also comes with a separate flower, which I'll just pick up, and also the layering piece that goes onto the top of that. So that's kind of like a little bit of dimension that it might give you. And also, to do all that, I've got a bunch of my stencil brushes, and also a gold sparkly pen, in case I decide to use it. Right, so I'm just going to clear my desk and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've moved everything out of the way, and I've got my scruffy mat down, which is a silicone mat that you can see it's all stained up and gunky, and I've had it for a long while. And I've also split my inks up into stacks of 3. So I've got my Old Paper, Bundled Sage and Rustic Wilderness, because if you look at Old Paper, it's kind of green in its tint. I hope you can see that. So I've stacked those three together. My darkest shades, Tea Dye, Vintage Photo and Walnut Stain. I'll pop those three down together. And then these are going down as my base layers first. We've got Antique Linen. I'm working with my lightest, Scattered Straw, and then the Fossilised Amber. Now, I'm thinking of my flowers as the Fossilised Amber. But first of all, I just want to colour the whole thing. So using one of my larger brushes, I'm going into the Antique Linen. I'm just going to move these little bits out of the way. And hopefully I can angle that so that you can see it. So here it is, Antique Linen, and that's all I do. I call it my swirly twirly. So I just load my brush up and I'm going everywhere. So it doesn't really matter, you know, about overlapping edges at this point. And I'll put my pad here, I think, so that I can keep reaching it. And it doesn't matter if you go down darker in some areas, lighter in some areas. I think that might add to the overall effect. So if you begin dry brushing in some places, I think that's going to be okay. So you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Antique Linen all over the place. So I'll finish that and come back. Right, so I've done that, and as you can see, it's a little bit patchy, but that's okay for me. And I want to show you what's underneath, because this makes a great stencil. Can you see that? Isn't that pretty? So you can absolutely put one colour down, go over with another colour, and use this dye as a stencil. But if I get close up there, you can see there's still a little bit of white in some areas poking through. Now, I would normally clean my mat, but because I'm using colours that are so close together and I'm going up the scale, I'm just not going to bother. I'm going to revel in my dirty mat. Yes, I am. Right, next colour is Scattered Straw. Now, I'm using the same brush, and I did kind of, you know, dry brush it out, so I don't think there's much left on it. But I'm just not going to worry. And I do not know what this colour is going to look like, how it's going to be different. So I'm now going to sort of like do flower areas and see what impact that has. But I'm going to, you know, choose my flowers wisely, because as I said, we're kind of like doing this monochromy in vintage colours. So I'm just picking them out randomly. And I think I'll do this one here. And I don't know if that's made much of a difference or if you can see it on camera. I think that it has actually, and I'm going to go to that one here. Yeah, quite like that. I'll do this one as well. Like I say, I've never done this before, so oh dearie me, stick with it to the end, you might like it. I'm going to do a few more, because then my next shade is Fossilised Amber, and I don't want everything to be, do you know what I mean, Fossilised Amber. So, and I may use some tea dye on these flowers in a minute. I'm just kind of like deciding. So there we've gone in with a second colour, and that was Scattered Straw. Next up is Fossilised Amber. So I'm just going to sort of like get as much ink off my brush as possible by going back into those areas. And I think I've pretty much done that. Just test it there. There's a little bit there, but I won't worry. And now for this one, which should make a huge difference. It's much more yellowy and much darker. So I know that I want my big one to be that colour. I can't believe I don't have the honey pad. I mean, I spent years, you know, collecting all the distress inks, and I thought I'd basically got all of them, but clearly I have not. And there's still a couple that I need to collect. I want that latest one, and I've forgotten what it is. Shadow or something. So I haven't got that one yet. That one is much stronger in shade. I can see that. Right, these paler ones, I'm going to pick these up in Well, I'm going to leave a few of them, but I'm going to pick some more up in this fossilised amber, and I'll be right back. Right, so that's all done, and I'm now going to switch to a different brush because we're going darker in shade, and we're going into the tea dye vintage photo and walnut stain next, and the palest of these is the tea dye. So I'm going to scoop some of that up. This is a lovely colour. It's tea dye is almost hard to describe, isn't it? We know it's kind of like browny shaded. Now I want to try and get my colour into the buds, and I've got to decide which bit of these plants is bud and which isn't. So the smaller ones, I'm darkening those up. And actually, you know, when I put the colour down, it's almost like, yeah, I couldn't really tell the difference for a minute there between that and the antique linen. But I think that's just my lighting. So I've got some buds done here in that darker shade. And we're still able to blend from what's at the bottom. Now I'm wondering, because you've got to be brave, what it's going to look like if I go into the middle of that flower, if it's going to change it much. And you don't know unless you try. It does, but it's very, very subtle. So I feel quite brave to go in there. It's a lot different to that one. In fact, I think I'll push that one out. There. So, ooh, I quite like that. So we are building up colours. And of course it's going to look a lot darker when you apply it to the paler ones. And then I can kind of like do the base of the flower. And you can actually, you know, treat these almost like a paintbrush. And if you don't have these, they're absolutely wonderful because they're so kind to your hands. You know, if you're somebody who suffers when you're crafting, these are just really soft and lovely. So I've done enough tea dye, and now I'm going to go into vintage photo. Now to me this is the brave one, and I'm going to switch to a smaller brush because I want to do the little buds in the vintage photo. So I'm just taking the lid off that, and you can see that is a lot darker, and walnut stain is darker again. So I'm just holding it down and I'm just going to touch the buds. So I'm just looking around to see where those are, and I can see more here. So you only have to tap your pad a couple of times to get, you know, just enough colour on that you're not going to start leaking and going onto other parts that you don't want to touch. So I think those are all the buds. I'm just moving it around to make sure I can see. Oh no, there's a couple there. So make sure my hands aren't all yucky. Go in and touch those. And I think I've just about got them all. Now I can see one there. I'll just stroke some colour onto that. Right, I think I've got them all. Yeah. It's one of those dyes that you have to look at to make sure, you know, that you're getting in the right place. And then while I've got this, I'm going to do a dry run in the middle of there, and let's see what happens to that. I'm quite literally sticking to those holes. So I don't know if that's made a difference. I think it has. It's just very, very slightly darker. Right, now next up is going to be the walnut stain, and I can use this brush again, and I pretty much dry brush that off, and this one is very dark. So this is Bravery on steroids, and I'm going to go for these kind of leafy looking ones and do those darker. Can you see how dark that is? That's just gone right in there. I'm going to do that one. I'm just going to keep moving it around. So we've got all these different tones going on. I'm going to do that one. So we've got the tea dye. I'm going to pick this up just for a minute so that you can see it. So you've got all those different shades. And then into some of those flowers, I'm going to be brave because that's kind of, I think, enough with that. But once I start doing this, can you see that? It's like a little button in the middle. And I'm going to go dark here as well. And always remember, you've got other colours that you can put on top if you feel that you got too dark. And then this area here that I kind of got a little bit painterly in, I'm just going to touch that up again. And just go really soft up there. And then up the edges. I want to blend that out. So I'm going really, really soft. So I'm almost dry brushing on that bit. Ooh, isn't that pretty? I think I'm going to go more over that actually. I quite like the colour of them all being blended together. And then I think I'm going to go in with my fossilised amber on top. Ooh, I like that. Right, now then, this time I am going to clean my mats because I'm going to use green. I'll be right back. Right, so I've cleaned the mat up a little bit, and now we're going to go in with our green shades, and they are Old Paper, Bundled Sage, and the Rustic Wilderness. So, starting with Old Paper, let's see if this has any impact. I am using a different brush again, just to be able to go through these shades. And I don't know if you can see that, but it is a very, very pale green. And I'm just choosing the bits that I think are the leaves, just as my base coat. And I think at the end of this, what I should do is go and cut this die again, put it down on a sheet of white cardstock and just stencil through it so that you can see exactly how that would look. I know that's going to make the video a little bit longer, but you know, I think it's going to look quite nice. So going over these in the scattered straw, that's a different piece. And I'm just looking, and I pretty much think I've got everything I think is supposed to be a leaf. Right, yeah. So I'll just dry brush off on some of these. There we go. And then the next shade is Bundled Sage. So it's a beautiful colour. It's one of my favourites. So I think I'm going to go on the outsides and just do little bits of what I've done. So I'm not touching the leaves up perfectly at all. I'm just adding in some of that colour. Oh, I actually missed one there. Right, I think that's that. And then I'm going to go in with my Rustic Wilderness, which is much darker again. So I'm going to try and go down to the base of the leaves using this and touching up just some of the stems. But like I said, you can use these stencil brushes in a very painterly way if you want to, but they just feel so good on your hands. I know I've gone quiet. I'm just trying to look to make sure I haven't missed any leaves. So just going through the bases of those. And anything, you know, that you think should be a stem, you can put that in. Now I might go over that bit again in a minute with some of my brown. But I've got an awful lot of colours going on in there. Well, nine shades we've used, which is quite nice. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to get the vintage photo out. And touch up just a couple of things. So I'm looking here and thinking. So they're going in with a couple of things there. And I think I'm going to do this flower because I've got it going into the green. Ooh, I quite like that. Do a couple of the flowers in the middle. Just give them a little bit of shadow. I think I'm going to do the seed section. Just darken that up. Because it's like the focal flower, isn't it? If you know what I mean. So you kind of want to see it. I'm going to some of these as well. Yeah. I think I like that. Oh, I want to put a bit of green here. And I think that's it. So we're kind of like stuck within a colour range there. Now what I'm going to do very quickly off camera, because of course the video is getting very long, I'm just going to use the same colour inks and I'm just going to do that sentiment and I'll be right back. Right, so I've been off and I've glued my little flower together using a bit of foam so that this piece will actually be three-dimensional with my little sentiment. That's all inked and done, so I'm just going to push that out of the way. That's the little craft banner that I showed at the very beginning, and then I've done the word smile, and I've done that in vintage photo and oh, what's it called? I've forgotten now. Rustic Wilderness. But I want to use my gold pen. Now my hand is not that steady, I will admit. So what I like to do, because I want to do a kind of outline around it and something a bit sparkly, is I'm just going to use the bit that die cut it. So I'm just going to move this towards me a minute and then I'll push it back so that you can see while I just straighten it up. So you can't always see everything on camera. So I'm just positioning my die cut piece back into the aperture from which it came. So there it is. I've quite literally got the top bit popped through. So now I've kind of got a guide for using my gold gel pen. And I hope that you can see this. Maybe it's better if I start over there, but then I might get confused. And I don't know why it's gone so dark. But I can quite literally track around the die cut outline Just do it slowly. And if you feel that you skipped a bit like I did there, you can just track it back again. So we're adding a little touch of sparkle into an area that for most of us, I think, would be virtually impossible to do. So, you know, keeping your apertures, I'm always showing you what you can do with your apertures, is really useful, just for adding a little something else and being able to do it neatly. Now I have to make sure the oxide isn't blocking my nib. And you should have now a nice gold outline and still have a little bit of green. And will look a lot tidier than if you did it freehand. And I'll go around that bit, and as you can see I haven't got the dot there, but I've got the base down, so while that's there I'm just gonna go round and round and do my little gold dot. And I think I've seriously missed a bit here, so there we go. So now I've got a sparkly outline which you can't see, so I'm going to pick it up. So just scoot it off the table. You can see that there. I don't think the camera really does that gel pen justice. I mean, it really is the most shiniest, sparkliest pen on the planet. It really is. Totally worth getting. I have the gold and the silver, and this is what they are. If I hold it the right way around, they are... Oh dear, my camera's gone all wobbly. It's the Signo Uniball. I'm going to try and get that correct. Hang on just a second. I'm going to try and find my focal point. Yeah. I think we've got a storm blowing through. Ooh. Oh. So it got my hand, but it's just not wanting to focus properly. I think it's because of the clouds gathering outside. There it is. Uniball Signo. Anyone else have to do that with their camera? Goodness gracious me. And they are sparkling pens, and this one is gold. Right. So that's that. Now, next up, we want to be able to put this to the base, and I'm just going to use my regular Dollar Tree glue to do this. And then when I've done this, I will run off and quickly die cut this again, and let's just put that flat and use it as a stencil and see what we get. So there you have it. For my 1000th video, I'm going to run off and do something else. I do love these bottles. I mean, whoever came up with this idea, you know, it's just brilliant. So I'm basically doing my outsidey little bits because I want this to go flat. The only dimension I'm really going to have is coming off the sentiment. And of course, if you wanted to get carried away with your gold sparkly pen, which is what I usually do, you can go in and do all the stamen areas of your flowers or put little dots onto those berries. And I've used all these kind of like sepia tones today, very autumnal looking shades. But you could do it in different shades of blue, different shades of pink, yellow, you know, or even lots of different colours throughout the flowers. It's entirely up to you. And I think actually for stenciling, I'm going to grab the broken china so that you can see what it looks like in a blue shade. Because I do know that blue is one of the most popular colours on the planet. Right, there we go. Missed one. Right, got all my outside edges and bippity bobs all glued. So now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to have that large flower here down at my bottom right, but you could orientate this whichever way that you wanted to. So now we're going to find out how close to tones we are, and put that about there, and I'm going to press it down. I mean, this would look great done in white on white as well. I do like white on white cards, especially when you combine different shades of white. Like you can get that very antique linen kind of white, and then you get the sort of bluey tints of white, and once you start mixing all those up, they can look fabulous, and you'll be amazed, you know, thinking, oh, I thought my cardstock was white, and it's not really, it looks grey. Yeah, colour shades are funny things. Right, so we've got a little banner here, and I'm thinking about there, and I'm thinking at the top of my banner, I hope that's straight, and then I'm thinking my 3D flower coming off my banner. Well, maybe I don't want to use the banner, maybe I'll go halfway on it. Ooh, I don't know, let's have a look. Pick that up. So I pruned all my fingernails off because I've been in the dirt. I don't know if I like the smile just on its own. Maybe I got it in the wrong place. Yeah, it gets like that doing a card. I'm kind of thinking at the bottom now. I'm thinking that that green is better, breaking up that big area of yellow. And then having my flower. I don't quite know where I want that. I think I will go off the end. Yeah, as you see that, I'm going to glue it and I'll be right back. Right, so I glued my sentiment together, and while I was doing that, I thought I'm going to put foam on it and make it 3D. So I'm just tearing the backs off of that now. And because it's got all the greens in it, I'm going to go quite close to the bottom. I'm trying to be in the middle, but straight on the smile, if you know what I mean. So I've got that there, and then I've got my little 3D flower. If I want that there, or if I kind of want it poking out from underneath there. Yeah, I think I'm going to put that there. Decisions. So it's already popped up between its little layer on a little bit of 3D foam. So I'm just going to pop those bits on. And then I'm going to just tuck that with its leaf under there, and I will poke my stencil tool around so that it's got some good contact. Put the lid back on my glue. And that is the finished card, and it is quite tonal. You can see here where I had some glue on my fingers, which is a bit naughty, so make sure you keep your hands clean. But there's that sparkly bit at the bottom. I really like that. I just wish it was a better picture because it just looks so hazy today, my camera. But I hope you enjoyed that. Now I'm going to run off now, and this is getting a very long video, and I'm going to die cut it again, get a piece of paper, get my scruffy mat, and let's use some blue and see what happens when we use it as a stencil. Okay, part 2. So I've been and cut a sheet of white cardstock, and just so that you can see how lovely this looks white on white. Isn't that nice? So you can totally do that, just white on white if you didn't want to do anything else. and it looks absolutely beautiful. I've got my stencil brush, which is my blue one, and I've got my broken china. Now this might take a little bit of inking, but let's just have a look and see what we get. So I'm going to hold it down, and remember, when you're doing the edges, you have to exercise a little bit of caution, because you don't want to scruffle them up as you go, sort of thing. Now this won't be perfect, I'm doing it quickly. But just as you see me doing this, I'm going to do it all over and come right back, and then let's have a reveal. Okay, so as I was doing it, it did move a couple of times, but I haven't lifted it off yet. But one of the things I would suggest is to take a sheet of cardstock that is almost the size of the die, cover that in packaging tape, and then run that through back and forth and cut your die out that way. That way you've got something that you can clean off and use as a temporary stencil. So that would be a good solution, rather than, you know, cutting it and throwing it away. So let's have a look and see what we ended up with. Isn't that pretty? I absolutely love that. And this, because it's very patchy, you know, just go in with a different shade and get the whole lot blended in, and then you've got yourself another panel. So I really enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed today, and I thank you so much for joining me for 1,000, yes, 1,000 video. And there is the one that we did in those lovely autumn shades. But whatever colour you decide to do that dye in, it's just going to be absolutely fabulous. So please do have an absolutely awesome day, and as usual, all links below. Bye.